have returning guest Jason Balin. If you have not seen the other episode, please go check it out. We talk about private money lending and borrowers and lending terms, all the good stuff you want to know. And Jason, but today we have a deal breakdown. We cover cool, interesting stories. Jason, what cool, interesting story do you have for us today?
Hey, thanks, Daniel, for having me. I got lots of cool stories, right? So I guess it just depends on what direction you want to go. And I got good stories. I got bad stories. I got stories about how I got into the industry as a hard money lender.
Let's do a good and a bad and maybe how you got started.
All right. So I'll tell you real quick how I got started in the industry because, wanting to start your own hard money or private lending company when I started in 2007 was a little bit unique and was a little bit rare. The markets were all shaken up at the time. I didn't really have any of my own capital to invest in this company, which made it a little bit interesting. So like 2005, 2006, I was buying some real estate with a few partners, and I remember we would get private money, hard money on every one of these deals. I got money from this guy named Ray who was out of state. He was charging us 15% and 5 points, which was the going rate at the time, which was fine. And we had a bunch of deals that we felt were good buys. We were just kind of scraping by. We weren't making much money on them. And the last deal that it ended up being our last fix and flip at the time. The numbers got really, really slim. And I remember that the GC at the time, we were like, you know what? We're not going to be able to afford to get this GC to complete this project. We're going to have to do some of this stuff ourselves. I'm not a big handyman. I don't know how to do a lot of that crap. My partner at the time was. I went to the property with him and spent the whole day messing with fascia and soffit. That was a term I did not know at the time. I know now. And yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day, I went home. I couldn't move my arms. The next day I woke up sick and I was like, this sucks. I don't want to freaking be involved as a real estate investor ever again. I want to be Ray, who has the money. I got to figure out a way so I can go raise capital and I can lend to other real estate investors so they can do the projects and I can just make a consistent, reliable 15% and 5 points. And that's in essence, that ended up being early 2007. And fast forward to late 2007, 16, 17 years ago, we started Hard Money Bankers, and that's been our focus ever since.
Amazing story. I think just consistency over time, get some good base hits, and you can do a lot of damage over a long time.
Absolutely.
So let's do your bad story first. You said you got a bad story.
Yeah, knock on wood, we haven't really lost much money on any transaction. I mean, there's been a few where we've, in essence, just threw money at it just to kind of get out, because I didn't want to spend any more time on it. But I've got one lending story where, in essence, we lent a good amount of money to a borrower in Northern Virginia, and the house burnt down 3 times. It burnt down once before we were the lender on the deal. He bought it in cash. He didn't have insurance. It burnt down.
No.
So then he came to us. He started rebuilding it in cash again. He came to us and we came in and gave him $400,000 and $1 million to finish the project. Something like that. During our term of the loan, the house burnt down a little bit. And we didn't know about this actually at that time. We were supposed to get paid off on, get proceeds from that, but we didn't. It was a small fire on the 4th floor. So 2 years later, guy's in default. He's not making monthly payments. The property's done. He has it listed for significantly higher than it should have been listed for. And a buddy called us and said, hey, turn on the news. This house is up in flames. And we're like, oh, shit.
No.
And the house was it was 14,000 square feet in a community that a lot of the houses were still 1,000 square feet. And it was a nice area. And it was an area that people were, buying lots, demolishing the houses and building these huge gaudy monstrosities on. But the interesting part of his house is the way it was so big that it had a never ending shadow over the neighbor's house because his house is that big. The other house is so small. So it could have been arson. We're not sure. Long story short, and the reason this turned into kind of a bad deal was we had insurance, but he was in default and he wasn't paying the insurance. And because it had burnt down multiple times, we were paying a high risk insurance company. And it ended up costing us $30,000 a quarter to pay for it. A quarter. So 4 times a year, $120,000. And we were paying it because he wasn't paying for it. It was in default. And again, our loan amount was low compared to the value of the property. We were in foreclosure trying to retain it. House burns down, right? We have insurance on it, right? So in essence, it's cool. Pay us our insurance proceeds. And then, the loan's closed. he'll keep the difference if there was any difference to rebuild and do his thing. We're out. We don't even have to go through foreclosure anymore. Well, in order to do like a full loss, they need a statement from the fire marshal. Can't remember what that term's called, but in essence, like a report from the fire marshal.
Yeah.
Because they want to determine to make sure like the property was supposed to have sprinkler systems and things like that to make sure it wasn't in violation. There was no cause of the fire, and there was no kind of it was a big claim, and it was a big deal that the fire marshal didn't want to put anything in writing. So they never like issued one at all.
Yeah.
So to this day, they never issued one. So like a year went by, and we're like, insurance company, pay it out. They're like, oh, we're just waiting on the fire marshal. And the fire marshal, well, there was no fire marshal report, and there was never going to be a fire marshal report. So finally, we had to take action, and we had to sue the insurance company. We had to fly to another state to sue an insurance company. The attorney that we got, who was licensed in that state, was extremely expensive, and he was familiar with that insurance company. It was a little bit shady practices of the insurance company to pull something like that. But they were like, it's a big claim, like come and get us type of thing. Like it was a business decision for them not to pay it. Right. Yeah. So we didn't, like it was hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal it would have cost. Luckily we got the attorney to work on contingency. So yada, yada, yada. We, for the most part, scraped by and got out. We got insurance money, and then we auctioned off the burnt down house property. The property was burnt down, but the lot was in Northern Virginia. It was still worth lots and lots of money. Yep. So like, I don't want to say like that's the worst deal ever, but like
a lot of hoops,
3 years, some sleepless nights,
a lot of hoops. No one talks about the hoops.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was a lot of speed bumps along the way.
That's a good story. I like that one. That's good. You have time for the good one?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like the best deal I've ever done. So like in my business, like I don't take a lot of big risks. So I also don't have a lot of big gains. Like I've never hit a home run on a deal ever. But I've hit singles every day.
Oh,
right. And like,
I mean, so that right there is that's a good deal.
Yeah. So that could be good and bad. Like we always talk about it. Like we've never really hit a home run on anything, but I have been, I'm also like a limited partner on a bunch of, self-storage deals and office buildings and commercial deals. And there's definitely a few of those deals that we've, doubled, tripled our money on without it really having any involvement. Right. Because we just put in capital as like a passive limited partner. So like to me, that's a huge win. Right. But again, like maybe my overarching win is like, hey, just keep hitting singles every day. And like, I'd like to hit a home run on a deal. Cause I think a lot of real estate investors at some point have done that. My partner and I just haven't. Like we just hit singles. Sometimes we get doubles.
I would say don't if you're good at hitting singles, continue hitting singles. Swing for the fences every once in a while, but continue hitting singles. Don't stop.
I agree. I mean, that's where we've been.
For everybody here, thanks for tuning in. Where can people find you online, Jason? And thanks for coming out. This has been a great episode.
Again, no problem. My website's hardmoneybankers.com. I mean, we're hardmoneybankers.com, like hashtag everywhere. hardmoneybankers.com. My email is jason@hardmoneybankers.com. So chances are, if you're looking for Hard Money Bankers, you'll find us on every social platform, podcast platform, things like that.
There you go. Everybody here, thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Base hits are good. Home runs are okay, but be consistent over time. That's the motto.
There you go. No doubt.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Go like, share, subscribe. Bye.
Thanks.